Hello and welcome to Two Crime Writers and a Microphone. We're your hosts Luca Veste
and I'm Steve Cavanagh,
and we're here to present a brand new podcast which will bring you the latest news in the book world, interviews with writers, agents, publicists, editors, you name them, we'll have them. Also, each week we'll hear from some of the best book reviewers around who will give us a reads of the week. Steve, how are you this week?
I'm great. How are you, Luca?
I'm not too bad. Feeling a lot better now than I was last week and the week before that as well. I'm finally getting over this illness, I think.
Good. Taking lots of vitamin C, lots of orange juice.
Well, after what you said last week, I'm a bit frightened of drinking orange juice. I've drank orange juice for a long time. Now all of a sudden it's starting to give me hives. You know, just thinking about it is making me think, oh God, I don't want to do that. I don't want to all of a sudden just like there be you on this podcast just going, hello, are you there? And it's me, I've just ran. You know. But no, I've been. Tell you what I've been having is zinc.
Oh.
Emma has decided that we should be taking more multivitamins and zinc is one of the things that she's read somewhere is really good for this type of illness over the winter. I don't know. I tend to do anything I'm told to do when it comes to health because I'm notoriously bad at looking after my own. So I just kind of let someone else look after me in that way.
Yes. Yeah, so Emma decided this was a good thing, and then just thought, oh, okay, I'll just do what Emma says.
Yeah. So if I don't come back next week. It's because zinc is actually carcinogenic or something.
You've had a zinc overdose.
I've had a zinc overdose. This was her grand plan. I think she should wait, to be honest, until I finish the book before the next book before she tries to kill me. To be honest,
I think she should do. Yeah, because the next one's going to be the big one.
Yeah, exactly. She doesn't know. It's Inspector Mallard. She doesn't realise how ahead of the game I am.
Inspector Mallard, Duck Detective.
So this week we'll be speaking to Callie Taylor, who's the author of The Accident, The Lie and The Missing. She's sold a ridiculous amount of books. Not ridiculous amounts as in like that she shouldn't have sold them, but an enormous amount of books recently. And we'll also be hearing from Tracy Mearns, who's going to review some interesting books this week. Not that she's told either of us what they're going to be, so we're eagerly awaiting that.
We are indeed. Tracy, I should point out for people who don't know, Tracy Mearns is my wife. I write under the name Steve Cavanagh, but my real name is Steve Mearns. So for tax purposes.
See, it's this kind of information that makes this podcast invaluable. Is that now you know what his name is. Unfortunately, my real name is Luca Veste. This isn't a pen name. This isn't something that I've just decided to write under. This was my actual given name at birth.
But it's a great name.
Well,
it's a fantastic name.
And you know what? Everyone who doesn't have this name, they believe this is a great name. You try living with it and going in the doctor's office and saying and hearing Luca Veste or Luca Veste Y. Or there's no Y involved. Also, how are you spelling Vest? Because there's an E on the end of my friggin' name. Anyway, this is a completely different subject. But also, if I was going to make up a name, I wouldn't put it V way at the bottom of the bookshelves at the end of the alphabet. I'd put it next to, I'd be like, Luca Child with an E, and a child with an E on the end. So I'd just be right next to Lee Child, or, it would be more thought through than this one, I'll tell you that.
There's a guy on Amazon who writes legal thrillers under the name of Joshua Gresham.
Oh, that's bollocks. He's not named that, surely.
He's Joshua Gresham, Gresha.
That's incredible.
He's just thought, ooh, maybe that's his real name. I could be judging him unfairly here. Maybe that's the man's real name. I doubt it.
So do I.
Really doubt it. And I don't know if it's quite worked in the way that maybe he thought it was. But yeah, so my new pen name is Jim Pattersall. And I'm now co-writing all my books.
Yeah. I'm going to go for Paul Hawking.
Paul Hawking, yeah. That's a good one. Paul Hawking.
Paul Hawking.
Paul Hawking.
Or Dan Black instead of Dan Brown. Dan Orange.
so okay, so hang on. So we've got your new book, A Mild Furnace by Dan Black, and the new Paul Hawking, which is the girl on the replacement bus service.
Yes. Oh no, that's terrible. Should we talk about some news?
Yeah, I think we're better.
Okay, first up this week we're going to talk about something that is going to rock the literary world. If the literary world was still in the 16th century, it's the news that the Oxford University Press is going to be crediting one of Shakespeare's rival contemporaries, Christopher Marlowe, as his co-author in a new Oxford Shakespeare edition it is publishing of the Bard's plays this month. He is going to be credited on the title pages of Henry VI Part 1, 2, and 3 as a co-writer of the books, the plays, aren't they? The plays. Plays, yeah. They're going to be they're going to be crediting Christopher Marlowe as a co-writer. Now, you tell me, as a defence lawyer in your other life, as Stephen Mearns.
You mean the life that the taxman knows about?
The life that the taxman knows about.
All right. Okay. That's a joke. Sorry, sorry. I have to clarify something here before we go any further. If HMRC are listening, it's really a joke. I am all legal and legit.
It's just a Guy Martin thing problem all over again.
No, don't mention Guy Martin. Lovely man that he is.
Yeah. So they're going to credit Christopher Marlowe as a co-writer on his work. Now, how would, I mean, obviously because everyone's dead, they're allowed to do this. But I mean, is there no one? I would imagine his work is now obviously going to be in the public domain, so they can do this without any kind of legal worry.
I think so. I mean, I'm not exactly sure about that. I mean, I think Shakespeare stuff is in the public domain, and anyone can go and publish it. But here's the thing. I don't give a monkey's about this at all.
Thank you for your honesty. It took me weeks to find this news and bring it to you.
I knew we were going to talk about this in the podcast, and I sort of thought, well, I'll try and feign interest and say something intelligent. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to be honest. I couldn't give a monkey's about this at all. I'm not. I've seen Shakespeare. I've read Shakespeare, and absolutely very fine writer. Will I lose sleep? Will it cause me any discernible difference to think that somebody else worked on a play with him? I mean, how do they know?
Well,
how do they know this?
Well, what they've done, because I brought this news to you that you're not interested in. I looked it up and I investigated further using my journalistic skills that I've honed over the many years of being No, I haven't. I've literally just copy and paste. But the decision to do it was it followed new research, and I'll quote from the bookseller. It follows new research conducted by a team of 23 academics from 5 countries, involving the use of computerized tools to analyze the text, providing empirical evidence that Marlowe contributed. The findings further indicate that 17 of 44 Shakespeare's plays were worked on by others.
Oh.
But this has been a really long-standing accusation that's been thrown his way, which I'm sure he's really disappointed about, being dead and all, and not caring. But it has been this the fact that he was either not the writer of those plays, or he was helped a lot by other writers in his generation. It wasn't there a big thing about the fact that it was Francis Drake or something like that was supposed to be one of the people who was supposed to be Shakespeare.
There was nobody really knows who he is,
No.
and the only people that care about this, there are guys in really tight turtleneck jumpers sort of sit in big armchairs smoking pipes and worrying about all this shit. Who gives a monkeys? Who cares?
It's a class thing, I reckon. It'll be a class thing, I imagine.
It might be.
The
There are
idea
people
that
who
someone like him could write something that resonates over centuries. It should not really be, credited as being that kind of person, maybe? I don't know.
I mean, it would be different if we knew more about the guy. I mean, what we actually know about Shakespeare, I don't think is very much. There's a lot, but know what it is? There's loads of academics with bugger all else to do except sit and look into all this nonsense.
It's just like
Why don't you do
scientists
something
who
useful?
look into things that, you're like, why have they spent months and thousands of pounds looking into whether a cat will lie on a certain bed rather than another bed? It's like the stupid little experiments that they do. Is this that kind of thing?
Yeah, there was a thing, I think it was on QI the other night, about monkeys. And there's all these academics or scientists and stuff, and they had found out that monkeys can understand money. And they were given monkeys, like a token, and the monkey would give the token in and get a banana or a piece of chocolate or something like this. And there were female monkeys who would basically almost prostitute themselves. So the male monkey would have to give the female monkey a token, and then the monkeys naturally too, and if nothing else to do, and then the female monkey would go and get 2 bananas or whatever with her own token and her friend's token. And I talked about, but here's the thing: what the hell are they doing? These fucking about for these monkeys, and I sort of feel a bit the same thing about this. Who cares? I don't think it's going to make any difference in terms of money coming into someone or not. I think it gives people an excuse to do something, really. And I understand it may shake the foundations of people whose foundations are very easily shook, but I'm not going to bat an eyelid. No disrespect to Mr. Shakespeare, but if we kind of knew who he was, and then we knew who Marlowe was in great detail, and they were interesting, then it might have more meaning. But we don't really know too much about these people, so who cares? Sorry about that.
Yeah, well, I do try.
I know.
To bring culture to this program, but
you feel
piss all over it, don't you? Your Belfast ways and. Alright, next up we have news of yet another library closure, and this one is in Hay-on-Wye, and it's been absolutely slammed by authors including Joanne Harris, Kathy Lert, Robert Harris. The County Council has revealed plans to close 11 out of the region's 17 libraries in order to save $250,000 by 2019. The local library in Hay-on-Wye, which is home to the annual Hay Festival of Literature and Arts, has been earmarked for closure. Now, I've never understood the library closure. I can understand that maybe attendance isn't as high as it used to be to libraries, but they still provide a service to so many people who want to read books but possibly don't have the ability to walk into a shop and spend money on them. It's like still serves those people who you're basically just victimizing people who can't afford to be victimized.
I think well, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't be a reader or a writer without libraries.
No, exactly.
We went to our library from I was no age, our local library, and it was the Ormo Road Library, and that's where I got my love of books from, was a library. I couldn't believe it when I was a kid. You go into this place and it's full of amazing books, and you get to pick one or two, and you take them up to the lady. You don't pay any money. Take them away, read them, and then you leave them back. I used to, for when I was young, I always thought my mum was secretly slipping this lady some money on the side to let me get these books out. It's a library. I think is an absolutely essential thing in any modern civilization. I think it's the foundations of civilization in many ways. The libraries are essential. They're not something that I think you can easily devalue or close. It is an absolute travesty to be closing a library. And I think, if anything, they should be spending money to get people into libraries, more people into libraries, because they are so important and it's to everyone. I mean, in the library you will get all social stratas in the library. But it's a real hub of knowledge and learning, and they're just as essential as schools, I think. Even more so. I learned more in libraries than I ever did in school.
Oh yeah, I don't think that was much difficult though around where we live.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, I remember that's where my love of reading came from, was being able to go to the library and take books out, and because we didn't have the means to be buying as many books as I wanted to read. So it was essential for me as a child to learn, especially because I learned a lot from reading rather than in school. I mean, it didn't teach me how to speak properly, as you'll guess from this podcast, but it did give me an imagination that I probably wouldn't have had without reading as many books as I did as a child. I mean, I remember going through the entirety of Blyton's back catalogue, and in one library, it was hundreds of books. I mean, they were only like 20 pages long, looking back at them now, but like they were my starting crime fiction reading. Was Enid Blyton. Famous Five is a crime fiction.
Absolutely.
And then I progressed into other authors, and then my love of horror came. They had all the Stephen King books, and I read all them when I was a bit older. Not much older, unfortunately, which is why I also didn't sleep much as a child. But it was the idea that you could just go in and be open to a world of possibilities. If you start taking libraries away, and I understand that they're not closing every single library, but what you are doing is you are making it more difficult for people to go to libraries. If you start closing them and they're not there, there's not many there, you are obviously going to cut off some sections of the society from going there. I remember just being able to walk to my local library, and there'll be people now who won't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Also, on a practical level, we need to put the old people somewhere. We've got so many of them nowadays. We've got to have somewhere for them to go.
Old people and the suspicious men in sort of suspicious coats.
Yeah.
You would always see hanging around libraries. But no, look, libraries this is something that is disgusting. They have to keep libraries open. They should be pouring money into libraries, because they're complaining about the education system and complaining about I don't know, but if you cut down on libraries, you are essentially destroying your own population. It's ridiculous. So yeah,
stop it. Yes, just stop.
Stop it.
One of the things in the article I read, which just struck me as so ridiculous, it was, and I'll quote: "The town's residents have until the 31st of October to present the council with a viable plan outlining how they intend to raise half of the £36,000 needed each year to run their library," the town's deputy mayor has said. What's
this man's name, the deputy mayor? Does it say his name?
It doesn't say his name. We need to find out what his name is.
Find out.
The idea that, listen, we're elected by you. Well, the mayor isn't, but the people who run the council are not, that are elected by you, and we're here to run your county or your town or your city or whatever. We need you to tell us how we should spend our money. It's ridiculous. It's the stupid thing I've ever heard in my life, because they're not asking us, listen, we need to fund the bins being collected every week. We can't really do it. It's a lot of money. Can you let us know how we're supposed to pay for it? No, That's your job. Your job is to do these things. It's not ours. It's not our job to tell you how to do your job. It's just
Exactly.
stupid.
It is the definition of stupidity, really, isn't it? And I'm sure the £36,000 they could find from somewhere very, very easily. I mean, I'm sure they spend a load of money, making the town look nice with the rose gardens and stuff like this and planting things and hedge cutting and, you know what I mean? Cut the hedge a day later or something like that. They can squeeze the money out of us. But to say where are we going to find the money, that's just stupid. What a stupid man.
I know how to find it. Why do we need a deputy mayor?
Exactly.
Why do you need a deputy mayor? Why do you need a mayor in the first place is probably a more interesting question. But we'll leave the mayor in place. You do not need a deputy. How much is he getting paid? I bet you it's more than 18 grand a year.
Well, exactly. How much are they spending on biscuits and sandwiches?
Yeah. We could clear this up within 5 minutes.
We could do.
Although, I mean the quality of this podcast may mean that we don't know the value of things.
Well, that's true. But at least we're not asking our listeners here, do you know what we're doing? Yeah. Can you get in touch with us and tell us what we should do?
Well, we kind of did that with asking them for Inspector Mallard fan fiction, to be fair.
Well, we did do this, but
that's material for in a few weeks when we haven't got anything else to talk about.
That's true. That's just right. Yes.
We're no better than the deputy mayor of this council.
Exactly. And in case you've missed it, this is the Luca Veste's new series, Duck Detective Fiction with Inspector Mallard. So go back and listen to episode 2 if you want to know more about Inspector Mallard. But I'm sure he'll come up. He's come up before. I'm sure he'll come up in a later down the line this conversation.
We'll have t-shirts by Christmas.
T-shirts. He'll have his own TV series by Christmas.
If ITV want to get in touch, they know where I am. Well, they probably don't actually. If ITV know where I am, I've done something wrong, I think. I don't know why I said that. Yeah, but you can find us online. You can get through.
What do you call the newsman from ITV News? What do you call him?
Which one? There's a few.
The guy, the roving reporter man.
Oh, the Cook Report guy.
No, is there not a guy? He's like...
I haven't watched the news in 20 years, obviously.
What? Well, surely there's like an anchor. There's somebody, who goes to disaster zones and stuff. And,
John Simpson.
Maybe it's John Simpson. I have no idea. Maybe John Simpson stand outside your house with a camera crew. You know.
It's day 3.
Like it. Yeah.
Join us here. The situation is unchanged. He still keeps peering out of his blinds going and mouthing, "What the fuck are you doing here?"
Oh, God.
So lastly, we have this news. Now, I haven't told you what we're going to talk about here. I want your initial reaction to this.
Oh, God.
So this is from the bookseller, again. Thebookseller.com, which is an excellent site. I implore you all to sign up to it. Mainly because if I don't do that, they may sue me for robbing all their... No, they won't. They won't.
It's a font of interesting news and articles.
Exactly. It's brilliant in the publishing game.
Yes.
So this is the news that the HarperCollins imprint William Collins has acquired world rights to the autobiography of former Prime Minister David Cameron in a hotly contested and significant deal which was negotiated with literary agent Ed Victor. The as-yet untitled book, I think we may be able to come up with some titles for it though, which Cameron will write next year for anticipated publication in 2018, is set to offer a frank and personal account of David Cameron's time and power in Number 10 Downing Street. The book will draw on over 50 hours worth of audio tapes recorded at Times columnist Daniel Finkelstein during Cameron's time as Prime Minister, and will address all the key issues and decisions he made as Prime Minister, including critical reforms to the economy, welfare... Yes, so what do you think about this? David Cameron is going to release an autobiography. Is it going to be as interesting as the one that contained the pig?
Uh, I'm sure he addresses Piggate in it.
I bet you he fucking doesn't. Because I bet you loads of people will buy it, hoping that they get a mention of the pig thing, and he won't even talk about it.
You know, what did you say of Daniel Finkelstein?
Yeah, that's the town columnist, Daniel Finkelstein.
And is it Finkelstein writing the book or Cameron?
Well, I think it'll probably be Daniel who writes it.
Right.
From these audio tapes that he's obviously recorded. So David Cameron just like making notes, bomb Libya, pick up milk on the way home, that type of thing. It's like, and then he'll have to kind of decide which one he wants to put in the book. But now, I mean, it strikes me that it's like, it seems to be the done thing, isn't it? Straight away after any kind of moment of being in the public eye, it has to come an autobiography along with it.
Yeah.
I mean, am I really interested in knowing what was going through David Cameron's mind when that thing about the pig came out? Not really.
No.
Unless he was to say, like in the book it was like, yeah, I fucked the pig. What about it? If that was in it, I'd be like, this might be interesting. I'd buy it if it was that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, is it just for his time in power, or is it his, like...
It does sound that way.
When I was a boy type of thing, I don't know. David Cameron is one of those... Wasn't he at school with Boris?
Yeah, they were all at Eton and that kind of thing, weren't they?
What do you call it? There was the Bullingdon Club.
The Bullingdon Club.
And that's where this pig thing supposed to have happened.
Well,
or not, as the case may be.
Yeah, it was an initiation ceremony, apparently. Is it that bad, really? Because the pig was dead. I mean, it wasn't like it was a live pig, and it was just the pig's head.
Well, the pig thing wouldn't be the most immediate thing that I would be looking for. I have to say it, David Cameron's. Because I would be thinking, is he now going to be honest about Brexit and about basically self-sabotaging his entire legacy? Because he would be the type of man who would want to leave a legacy. He's got he's got sort of legacy hair. He's
has the hair for a legacy.
He has the hair for a legacy. Speaking as a bald man, I would look at him and think, there's a man there with hair that could leave a legend, But it would be interesting to see if the book touches upon Brexit or breakfast. There's lots of people have been mispronouncing it. It was a radio thing on Radio 4 today. Lots of people talking about hard breakfast and chaotic breakfast and soft breakfast when they really meant to say Brexit, but they're mispronouncing it with a hilarious effect. But no, Cameron, I don't know. I think he really made a total balls of that whole thing.
Well, I don't think he was the only one, but I don't think he helped.
No, I don't think he helped. And Boris Johnson. Well, did Boris had his own book? Wasn't he supposed to write a book about Churchill?
Yeah, but
or Shakespeare.
Shakespeare.
Was he supposed to write a book about Shakespeare?
I think it was about Shakespeare. I think it was.
And then he says, I can't write this book about Shakespeare because I've made such a balls of everything else. I'm going to have to spend my time fixing all of that.
I don't remember that being the official line, but it was probably what he was thinking.
No, probably what he was thinking. But that would have been interesting. It would have been interesting if Boris had written that book about Shakespeare and how fantastic Shakespeare was. And then this whole business came out about Marlowe, most of it. And all of Boris's stuff was all shite.
Unless he is the source for them recrediting his work. It's all come from Boris.
I doubt anything interesting or factual comes from Boris Johnson. To be honest, he's just a balloon, isn't he?
Yeah. I think it's on purpose for a lot of it, though.
You think so?
I think so. He's obviously a very intelligent man.
He is.
Of a fashion. He's, got to a place where, people still take him seriously. It must be something about him. Seriously in some avenues anyway.
Yeah.
But no, I just I'm still stuck on the pig thing.
But I don't know. See, I don't care if I'm sure all that shit does go on. They're running about and rubbing each other's nipples and doing funny handshakes and all of this business, and all of that stuff. And that Bullingdon Club, there are lots of horrible rituals reportedly from it. But no, the pig thing doesn't interest me at all, as I don't care about it. What I do care about is his hair.
The hair of legacy.
The hair of legacy. But there was lots of interesting stuff happened when Cameron... And what I really liked about David Cameron, have you ever seen him being interviewed? He did this brilliant thing of when he was finished an interview,
he would just walk off screen.
He would just bugger off.
Yeah, I loved it.
None of that. Thanks very much, and see you later. And stop speaking and leave. Do you know if I would make me buy this book? If he had a bit about him and George Osborne. You know that? Have you ever seen that video of George Osborne bombed out of his skull?
Oh yeah.
And well, I should hang on. Back up here. We really need a lawyer on this show. Ladies and gentlemen, we have no information whatsoever that George Osborne has ever taken any illegal drugs. However, video which you can watch on YouTube, and it looks or appears as though George is not altogether there, and that he may have been transported elsewhere. He looks as if he's bombed out of his skull. He really looks high as a kite. And that was a man who run the economy for lots of years. So
fair,
I would love...
It does explain a lot, though, wouldn't it?
If we do, but I would love a bit about Cameron going, aye, George, what about him? And it was a bit of rumour or scandal about George or someone like that, or what Cameron really thought of Boris Johnson. Because they were supposedly friends, and then Boris was stabbing him in the back, and Michael Gove was stabbing people in the back, and all of that business. They're all... I'm not going to read this book. I don't have to say. This book comes out, I'm sure it'll do really well.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to read it unless there's at least a chapter on the pig.
No, I'm not interested unless the pig's in there.
I'm not going to read it unless there's at least a chapter on George Osborne and nefarious practices. So,
to be fair though, I wouldn't even know if the pig was in there unless the book was called That Pig and Me, or David Pig in the City or something like that.
I have to say though, it kind of pales in comparison now to American politics.
Oh, just.
When you have the Donald Trump grabbing by the pussy, kind of that's the name of his next autobiography.
Oh God, it's just shocking. It's just shocking.
So, there you go. So I'm sure that book will come out. Go and buy it, folks, and then email us and tell us what's in it and if the pig's in it, and then we get it.
We'll talk about that in 2 years' time when it's actually out. We'll mark that on the calendar now.
Yes, just draw a pig.
This week in Reviewers Corner, we have the amazing Tracy Mearns. She is a avid book reader, and she runs the Tequila Mockingbird book group on Facebook. She also happens to be married to my co-host Steve Cavanagh. He is away at the moment, allowing Tracy to talk about the books that she's been reading this week. I don't think he knows what she's been reading, so this will be a surprise not just for me, but for him as well. So Tracy, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, hi Luca. Good to be here.
Excellent.
In my very expensive studio here. Yes.
Yeah. I've seen the picture that you tweeted of Steve, and I was thinking, yeah, at least I've got light in my room.
No expense spared.
So what's the first book you're going to talk about this week?
Okay, well, this week, first of all, I'm going to talk about the scandalous book called Maestra by L.S. Hilton. Obviously, my husband wouldn't know that I'm reading this. I have to sort of cover the cover so he doesn't really know what I'm reading. He wouldn't let me read such filth. I don't know if there's a name for this type of genre. It's quite, how would you describe it? It's quite sexy, gritty.
Wanklet.
Yeah. that might work. So, yes, this book is by L.S. Hilton, who is also known as Lisa Hilton. And during the day, really, she's a writer of history books and historical fiction. But at night time, she has this alter ego where she just writes this disgusting filth. And there was so much buzz about this book and everybody was talking about it. And I think it was widely publicized as the most scandalous book that you will ever read. And then I saw an interview with her and the headline was "Other Women Hate Me for Being So Sexy." Oh. So that's obviously something I have in common with her. Yes, I read the book and it's quite good fun. You know, it's an easy read. You know, don't be expecting a literary masterpiece here. It's about Judith Rashley. Rashley, actually, that's quite appropriate. And by day, she's an assistant at a London auction house. And then she starts to supplement her income by becoming a hostess in a gentleman's club. She loses her job at the auction house as she's suspicious that they may be committing a fraud there with a painting. And from here, she just transforms from a rather ordinary, unremarkable character who you don't really have much feelings for one way or the other. And she becomes this jet-setting femme fatale who has no likability factor whatsoever. Oh, I sound a wee bit like Louis Walsh there. Likability factor. So she suddenly becomes this trained assassin overnight and an expert at hiding mobile phones in unmentionable places. And then there's the sex scenes. They're shocking, all right. Shockingly bad. There was one actually that really drew my attention, and I think maybe
is this the one you've sent me?
Yes, I think just to give your listeners a view, or you know, it really did strike a chord with me. Oh my God!
I'm just reading it now. I'm thinking, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. If you could read it out in your, you know, sexy Liverpudlian accent, I think, you know, it might get some of the listeners' pulses racing.
Okay. Thankfully, it's not that long. The bit from the book, I mean. This is terrible. Okay. We played a game. He liked that. He liked that a whole lot. Later, he worked a finger up my arse and held it to his nose. You smell of oysters. Try. I breathed a scent on his hand and it was true. I didn't know what that happened. For real, I didn't. I licked his finger to taste the clean scent of the sea inside myself. That's an image that's going to stick around, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oysters, no longer an aphrodisiac for anybody after reading that. So yeah, that was just a bit ew, wasn't it?
Just a bit.
So, well, I've been looking into this lady L.S. Hilton a bit, and she had an article in the Guardian there in September, and she says in it there that everybody hates her book. Everyone. She said her agent hated it, the publisher hated it, and pretty much everyone she showed it to hated it. So I'm like, why on earth did they publish it? And like her name, and it was on buses traveling around London. Why on earth did they put this out? And why have 42 countries bought it? And they're going to make a movie out of it as well.
I hope that scene's not in it. Oh, jeez.
The oyster scene.
Oh, God.
People fainting in the cinema and everything when that comes on. So I just thought, that's a bit bonkers, really, isn't it? And she also goes on to say that she really, you know, doesn't like writing. And, well, it's quite clear. No, she says that she quite enjoys the fact, though, that she's made a lot of people angry with her book. So I'm just thinking most of them are angry because they want their money back, not because of anything else. But it leads me on to another author that it's quite a similar, what did you call it, the genre? Wanklet?
Wanklet? I'm going with Wanklet.
Well, that's probably a wee bit unfair because I really, really did enjoy both these books, and they're from Ava Marsh. Yeah, now the first one I read, it was back out in May 2015, and it's called Untouchable, and that's about Stella, who is an escort, but she is a really likable protagonist. She's highly educated and smart, and you learn she's got a bit of a secret past going on. She's also a call girl now, and she's investigating sort of like one of the other our friends gets murdered. So it's really, really, it's a brilliant book. And I just thought, wow, this is so much better than this Maestra book, and it's a shame it just didn't get the same kind of publicity. And Ava also has a new one out called Exposure. I've just finished reading that. And it's about a porn star who is a double killer. So I thought, oh yeah, I'm sold with that one. Obviously, Steve thinks I'm reading Wuthering Heights at the minute. Will not let on. But it's really, really good as well. It's about Kitty, that's her porn star name, or her day name is Leanne. And she's very troubled, but also very, very likable. And I really like sort of psychological thrillers because I find, I like to sit and think, oh, I know what's coming. I can see what this twist is. I can guess. And I really thought I was being really smart reading the end of this book, thinking, oh, I've got it all sussed out. And then Ava just sort of really flipped it on its whole head at the end. And I thought, oh my goodness, I really didn't see that coming at all. So she totally fooled me with the ending, and it was such a brilliant twist at the end. So I would definitely recommend everybody to go and get that. And I think it's $1.99 on Kindle at the minute as well. So everybody will really enjoy that one.
I'm interested in that. I've always wanted to read something different. I think this is probably different enough for me. I've never really, delved into that kind of erotic thriller genre. But maybe Ava is the one I should try first.
Yeah, definitely. You've probably read enough of Maestra for one night.
Yeah, I mean that was horrifying. But so we've got Maestra, which would you recommend people to read it? Is it a good read? Is it a good, like, even if it, you start wincing at some of the sex scenes, is it still a fun read?
Oh yeah, I find it, it'll just wash over your head. There's a lot of people criticizing it because a character in it just sort of name drops all these brands of, fashion brands in every sentence. And it's almost like, gosh, it should have a big product placement thing on the front cover, one of those big P's. So that annoyed a lot of people. But I just, it just washes over you. You'll read it quickly. It'll certainly stay with you. That oyster scene stayed with me for a long time. And one of my favourite things to do is actually read the 1-star Amazon reviews it's got. Because people, I know that's really mean, but they're just hilarious. Like, people are so horrified by the oysters. There's lots of, I will never eat an oyster again and stuff like that. So, yeah. And, it ends, this may annoy some people, the ending of it says to be continued. So I think this is like a trilogy, and the next one is called Domina, and it's out in March 2017. So lots of people saying I'm not buying the next one, no chance. But you know what? I probably will. Let's see what she does with food in this next one.
But,
you might get some prawns or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What sea creatures can be horrifying. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us this week. I think Steve is going to be probably back soon, won't he?
Oh yeah, well I sent him to the shop. He'd probably be back with my oysters. So there he is now.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks very much for joining us.
Luca. Bye.
Bye. This week we're joined by Callie Taylor, who writes under the name C.L. Taylor. She writes psychological thrillers under that name. She is the best-selling author of The Accident, The Lie and The Missing. Her first book was one of the top 10 best-selling debut novels of 2014, and her second and third novels, The Lie and The Missing, were Sunday Times bestsellers and #1 Amazon Kindle chart bestsellers. Her fourth psychological thriller will be published in April 2017. Welcome to the podcast, Callie.
Cheers, thanks guys.
So, it's I was delivered The Accident. It was a good couple of years ago now, and I remember the cover being very different to the one that came out. The proof copy was very different, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really kind of crimey. It was a sort of black and white shot of a school with a blurry stop sign, and they ditched that quite early on, I think, because it didn't really say psychological thriller. It just said crime, and I think there's a difference. So yeah, then I got my kind of iconic-ish black covers with the back of a woman and blurriness and all that kind of stuff.
See, that's the ones that are really effective, though, isn't it? It's like it's all dark, and then you've just got like this pinpoint of light, and just and I think that's really effective, and I think they did a really good job with those covers, Avon. I mean, some of the taglines just are brilliant, though. Keeping the secret was killing her. That's brilliant. Yeah. She trusted her friends with her life. ... I love that kind of psychological. And you have a background in psychology, don't you?
I do. I've got a degree in psychology, and I don't know how much it comes in useful, because a lot of psychological thriller authors don't necessarily have backgrounds in psychology. But I love abnormal psychology. All of my characters so far have had some kind of issue, some kind of abnormal psychology issue, like post-traumatic stress disorder in the first one, anxiety in the second one, dissociative amnesia in the third one, and the one that I've just finished now, she's got agoraphobia. So I just love that. I love that when the human brain goes a bit awry, and the way it makes you kind of perceive things differently.
Well, that's fascinating. That's great. I mean, because these types of thrillers, the reader wants to know what makes ordinary people do strange or mysterious or terrible things, and you seem to be really delving authentically into that.
It's funny, actually, because when I wrote The Missing, and it's got dissociative amnesia in, basically that's when people have blackouts where they can't remember like huge swathes of time, and it can either be like an hour, or it can even be weeks, or even up to years, where people just have a whole new life, and then they kind of almost come to, and it's a really strange sensation because their sense of self changes. And I'd read about Agatha Christie having a dissociative fugue, where she'd found out that her husband had had an affair, and recently her mother had died, and she drove her car to this lake, and apparently it's a lake where she killed off several characters in her books, and she left her car there, she left her fur jacket there and her suitcase, and she just disappeared. And then she was discovered by the police some weeks later up in the Swan Hotel in Harrogate, where the Theakston's Old Peculiar Crime Festival is, and she checked herself in as Kitty Neal, and was it Teresa Neal? One or the other, but Neal was the surname of her husband's lover, and she'd said that she was South African and she was a widow, and there was this kind of sort of big hoo-ha whether it had really happened and she had actually had a fugue where she couldn't remember doing this, or if it was a publicity stunt, or if it was to pay her husband back for the affair. And I thought this was really amazing and unusual. And when I wrote the book, I just thought, The Missing, nobody's ever going to believe that fugues happen. And I've actually had tweets of people saying that they've experienced something similar, just for small amounts of time, maybe an hour or so, but they couldn't remember what they did. And I just think that's amazing, the fact that readers have experienced this. And I just thought I was, kind of plucking something really unusual out of thin air to help build a plot.
No, I think you are. I mean, but I have to say and clarify this straight away. I've had a few dissociative fugues at Harrogate at the International Crime Writing Festival, but I don't think it was psychological, unless I really sort of blame Stuart Neville and Martin Waits, who were buying me pints of dissociative fugue. It seems that there were whole hours lost, but but not in that way. No, I'm joshing. See,
what I think is really interesting though is that you kind of, with The Accident, came It was like the initial wave of psychological thrillers becoming more widely sold, wasn't it? It was more widely read, I should say.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first ones I remember that came out around that time, that, you know, Gone Girl came out and Before I Go to Sleep. Now, you wrote fiction beforehand, didn't you, under the Callie Taylor name? So what was the change? What made you change to the psychological thriller genre?
Yeah, I wrote my first book deal was for 2 rom-coms for Orion, and the first one was like a supernatural rom-com, and the second one was a straight rom-com. And I'd always, like, I started off writing short stories. That was kind of how I got started, and I'd always written, like, there was like I had a split personality. So sometimes I'd write really light, kind of frothy, you know, light-hearted, happy ending kind of things, and I'd sell those to the women's magazines. And then I wrote sort of darker, weirder, more twisted stuff that I'd sell to the e-zines or the literary magazines or whatever. And I never quite knew back then what kind of writer I was. I guess you kind of naively think that maybe you could be everything. You know, I could write a sci-fi one year and I could write a horror another or whatever. But obviously it doesn't work like that. And once your career gets going, you know, that's kind of you in your genre box sort of thing. But I wrote these 2 rom-coms, and they sold really well internationally. So they sold to 14 countries, and they were bestsellers in China and Hungary, weirdly enough. But they didn't sell hugely well over here. And I think I was right at the end of the Bridget Jones kind of sort of phenomenon, and there was loads and loads of rom-coms out there, and they just weren't selling very well. And after I wrote the second one, my agent asked me to put together a synopsis and 3 chapters for a third one, to, you know, try and get another deal. And my editor actually said that she didn't want any more rom-coms. What she wanted was a sort of emotional Jojo Moyes type read, or a Richard and Judy book club read. And I just thought, I don't know how to write either of those. You know, I can't be another author. And how on earth do you write a Richard and Judy read? You know, I don't know if anybody sets out to write one. But I haven't got a clue. But I'd had this idea for a while about, you know, a woman whose daughter's in a coma, and the daughter's written an entry in the diary saying, "Keeping this secret is killing me." And I'd written the first chapter, and I'd entered it into the Romantic Novelists Association competition, and it had won, and it was like the opening to a novel, but I didn't know what was going to happen. And once I heard that my editor didn't want, you know, any more rom-coms, and in actual fact she let go of a couple of other rom-com writers that year, I thought I really want to carry on writing this story. And I didn't necessarily know it was a psychological thriller, but I just recently had my son, and I had to feed him every 2 to 3 hours at night, and I just started to plot it. It kept me sane, really. And then when he was asleep during the day, when he was napping, I wrote it. My agent said, you know, go for it. And then it, you know, within 4 or 5 months, I had the full draft, and she said it was the best thing I'd written. So, you know, that worked out pretty well, really.
So you hadn't read any of the other psychological thrillers that were, you know, becoming big around that time then?
Well, I had listened to Before I Go to Sleep while I was put in those first few weeks of my son's life. I'd push him around in the pram, and I listened to the audio book of Before I Go to Sleep, and I found it really compelling and really spooky. And, like, you know, I was sort of half insane from sleep deprivation, and just had the narrator's voice in my ear just going, Christine. If you've read it, it's just, it really gets in your head. And then I kind of thought, this book is huge, and I kind of sensed that, you know, that it could take off as a genre. And I think I'd read Elizabeth Haynes' book. It was several months before, like maybe 6 months before I was pregnant. I can't remember. And that was an amazing book as well, Into the Darkest Corner. But those were the only 2 psychological thrillers that I'd read. And I think I was really, really lucky to get in there right at the beginning. I think it's a lot harder now for authors trying to make the switch. I know that there's several women's fiction authors who are writing psych thrillers now, because women's fiction still doesn't really sell that well unless you're one of the big names. So but I think it's hard now, unless you've got a book with a really, really strong hook that's totally different from anything out there. It's funny, actually, because my first book, The Accident, was published in 2014, and it's recently gone to the top of the Amazon chart again because of a price promotion thing. And a couple of the reviews that I've had have said, "Oh, boring, domestic suspense, woman not being believed. This has been done loads." And I really want to reply, like, it came out in 2014. But
I think the thing is, though, is that I don't think it's a genre that's going to wither at the moment. I think it is still very popular. I think we see that with still Girl on the Train is number 1 and 2 in the charts, which we have discussed, haven't we, Steve? Is that it's because there's a film tie-in novel, and they kind of break it across 2 different formats. It's very strange. So I think there's still a mass populace who are still discovering this type of genre. And I think obviously your publisher Avon believe the same as well. I mean, we were reading about the fact that you've just signed a new deal, but it's an interesting deal, I thought, because it's brokered across 3 separate imprints, and it's to 2 further novels with Avon and a 2-book young adult thriller deal with HQ.
Yeah.
Where's the third one come in? Because that's where I got confused.
The third one is HarperCollins in the States.
Right.
Has bought The Missing. So they've got The Missing. I did have a different US publisher for the first 2, but we're kind of throwing all our eggs into the HarperCollins basket now.
I think that what's interesting, though, is that you're also going to be writing these YA thrillers. Is there going to be much? Is it going to be the same kind of feeling, but aimed at a different audience, possibly?
No, they're quite different, actually.
Oh, right.
They're thrillers, but they're not so much psychological thrillers. They're a little bit dystopian, actually. So, like, my partner refers to my adult psych thrillers as my fraught women books. He said he can't read them because he says it reminds him too much of me when I'm being a bit neurotic. But the young adult books, the main character in that is a girl, 17-year-old girl, but she's the hero of the story. She does the rescuing. She, comes up against authority and all this kind of thing. So she's, rather than things happening to her, which tends to happen in psych thrillers, where these fraught women find themselves in sort of terrible situations, this character in the thriller actually sets out to go and rescue someone. So she's obviously going to, she's not going to be a hero at the beginning of the book, but she will be by the end. So I'm quite excited to write a very different kind of character in a very different kind of book.
Fantastic.
That sounds really interesting. I love those dystopian thrillers. I was out, The Hunger Games was for me. I loved it, and my daughter's now reading it as well, and she loves it as well. There's something about that kind of dystopian thing where it's like, it's like a near future. Black Mirror, the TV series, is always really good at that kind of thing as well.
Yes, that's right.
So I'll be reading that one definitely. But what I mean, like, it must have been, with that break in between the 2 rom-coms and then moving to the accidents and the psychological thriller genre. Is that period of time, especially as you say you just had a newborn as well. I mean, that must have been like, a really, not an interesting time, but we've all kind of been there within our careers where it's like, you don't know what's going to happen next. So it must have been incredible when the success of The Accident came about.
Yeah, it was terrifying, quite honestly. I kind of convinced myself that, I'd had my bite of the cherry. That was it. I'd had 2 books published, they'd sold abroad, and that was it. My career was quite possibly over. And it took a while, to get the deal with Avon. Months, I think. It was out on submission, and there were various editors who liked it but not quite enough, or they didn't find the main character sympathetic, or they just signed something that was similar, or And with every rejection that came in, I just became more and more convinced that was it, that my career was over. And I nearly actually at one point told my agent to pull it, because I thought, it's just humiliating, getting all these rejections. And she said to me, no, I will sell this book. I believe in this book and I will sell it. That's Madeline Milburn, in case anybody's wondering who's that tenacious agent. And she did. And she sold it. She sold it to Avon. And, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really expect very much, to be honest. I guess I was just feeling a bit kind of flat by then. By the time we sold it, I was a bit, all right, okay. So for what happened next in terms of, being one of the 10 best-selling books of 2014, debuts, it wasn't my debut, but it was my debut at Psych Thrillers. And then, for what happened with The Lie and The Missing afterwards, and then getting this amazing deal now, it's, no one could be more surprised than me, really.
It's incredible. I love good stories within publishing. It shows that it still happens.
Exactly.
Yeah, it still can happen for people. There's always these naysayers who believe that everything's on the way down, but you only have to look at the bookseller on a weekly basis to see that there's still huge deals being done, and and a lot of these deals are with people who have had long careers before, and because I always remember the Sarah Pinborough one when she got the new deal with HarperCollins. And thinking, well, she's been around for a long time, and now it seems that she's, going to actually, kind of take the next step forward in her career. And it's always great when you hear stories like that.
Yeah, Tammy Cohen did really well as well, didn't she, with her last deal?
Yeah.
And she's written quite a lot of books, so she's another one who's kind of made her mark in the genre, really, and she's doing all right now.
Callie, my wife is a huge fan of yours and read all your books. And she has asked me she's written a very searching question.
Oh, God.
And wants you to answer it, if you'd be so kind.
Okay.
Her question is, what do you like most about 90 Day Fiancé?
I have a feeling this might come up.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, my wife and Callie share a love of what some people would call trashy TV. I don't call it trashy, but yeah. So she loves it.
Yeah,
it's bizarre, isn't it?
I've been brought to task about this before when people have said to me, how do you relax? You write all these tense novels and whatever. And I say I watch really bad reality telly, almost the cheesiest and most staged that it is, the better. It's total, bubblegum for the eyeballs. It relaxes me just watching these kind of mundane programs. The thing that I like about 90 Day Fiancé is, I like to call it, like, Alex Marwood also is a bit of a fan of reality telly.
Oh, yes.
And she particularly likes Big Brother. She always watches Big Brother, and I watch Big Brother, and we talk about it on Facebook. And she says, it's psychology. It's watching people interact. So that's going to be my excuse. But
yes.
It's watching human interaction and power play and, people forming alliances and all this. But 90 Day Fiancé, it's because they choose these couples who are engaged, who met abroad or whatever, and then they go to America for 90 days, and then they have to decide if they want to get married. It's because there's so much drama in it, and there's clashes. There's one guy who's like in his 60s, and he's with a 19-year-old Filipino girl. And
that's kind of okay, because she just wants the visa.
Yeah,
that's very clear. That's a total business transaction going on there.
Yeah,
I don't think that he bought her a car, didn't he?
Yeah, a red convertible. But equally, he like wakes her up with a trumpet in the morning or something.
You gotta watch this. Look at it.
I have to now.
Yeah. He spoilt the car because she gave her this car. And she was like, oh, my God, that's so fantastic. And she couldn't drive. And then after he sort of ruined it by saying, Yeah, I bought my ex-fiance the exact same car. And
Yeah.
it was like, oh, that's a bit, so it's not special for me. That's the car that your ex had. And
Yeah. So you've been watching it too then, Steve?
I haven't watched it. It's fantastic.
Don't you think it's fascinating the way these people clash? And then they've chosen the Mormon guy and the girl who used to be a go-go dancer in a club in Prague. And
That's right.
Yeah, they couldn't have chosen more different couples. And it's just seeing the way that they clash that I find really interesting.
It's fascinating, and she's going to become a Mormon. I think that'll last all of about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That marriage,
Right.
and she'll just go. She'll just leave him.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
I don't think many of them are going to last, to be honest.
No.
It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like it's been done on purpose, though, that they won't be lasting.
Yeah, exactly.
I watched that one on Channel 4. Where I can't remember what it's called now. But it's the
Married at First Sight?
That's the one, yeah.
Oh yeah, I've been watching a bit of that as well.
I think that's fascinating. The idea that science can bring these two people together, and then it's you the first time you meet is on your wedding day, and then they just then they'll say okay, we're going to give you 6 weeks, you live together, and we'll see what happens at the end. But you always notice that one person in the relationship is more committed to the idea than the other. Like on the wedding night, especially when you can just see the look on it. It's usually his eyes where it's like, look what I've got, what I've done here. It's great. I've really, and you can just see her going, I don't think this is going to go anywhere. But it's, I do find stuff like that fascinating. I think I've got to watch this 90 Day Fiancé now though, because this just sounds incredible. It's an American one, I assume, is it?
It is. It's awful, but quite compulsive.
I don't watch a lot of the reality TV. I had to though when I was writing my third book. I had to watch Geordie Shore.
Oh God, that's so painful.
That.
Jesus, oh God, that was. Oh.
I hated Geordie's. Every episode was the same. They got up and then they had something to eat and they went out and get pissed and they had an argument and people fell down and that girl pissed on the sofa and then they took the whole thing the next night. It was awful. Tracy loved. She sat through 8 or 9 series of Geordie Shore.
Yeah.
I watched that. There was another one as well. It was a very short-lived series, but it was called Desperate Scousewives.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, it was horrific. Apart from the fact that most of them weren't even from Liverpool. They were all from Cheshire or the Wirral, and they were just it had a semblance of a Scouse accent, so they were thrown into this show. Honestly, that's where the Scouse brow phenomenon came from. Was that show?
Oh.
Do you know, it was just these big, thick eyebrows. They were getting the women on the show were getting these big, thick eyebrows that looked like a caterpillar had shat on their foreheads. It was just unbelievable. But yeah, I watched a bit of that as well. But that was cancelled after 2 series, and I think Liverpool were quite happy about it.
If you think Geordie Shore's bad, you should watch The Valleys, which is the Welsh version.
Oh,
Even for me, who loves a bit of reality telly, I was like, whoa, this takes things to a different extreme of depravity. It was quite something.
See, I couldn't. I lived in Wales for about 2 years, and that would bring back far too many bad memories. I couldn't watch that. I lived in Cardiff, which was fine, but the bit of Cardiff I lived in was called. Now, wait to hear this. This is how it was spelt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Splott. Splot. Splot. Now, Shirley Bassey's from Splot.
Ah.
But she doesn't say splot. She says splo. And I thought, no way. You can't. One silent T I'll let you away with, but you can't get away with 2 silent T's. But no, I must tell Tracy then about the Valleys.
Yes.
That I'll tell Tracy. I'll write that down. Actually, see, this is the hard-hitting insight that you get from this show.
Yeah, we ask the tough questions. We're like Jeremy Paxman of the New Age. It's answer the question about Geordie Shore. It's that kind of thing. We bang the table.
I do have a writing question, I suppose.
Oh, right.
I do. Is this true, Callie? You have a treadmill that you type. You can set up your computer and type while you're on the treadmill.
I have done. I don't do it all the time, but I have got basically. I've got the I've got an office on the ground floor of our house, which most people, I guess, in these terraces use as a dining room. But it's my office, and it's got a sofa bed in it, which is a sofa most of the time, and it's got a treadmill, and it's got my desk, and each one takes up a third of the room. Right. So literally, my chair that I'm sitting in now is butted right up against the end of the treadmill, and behind me, if I wheel back a couple of inches, I hit the sofa. So it's all quite compact. But I got the treadmill. I bought the treadmill off my sister, actually. She was selling it, and I just thought, oh, as a writer who doesn't like leaving the house and interacting with other people, perfect. Have a treadmill in my house so I don't have to go anywhere. So originally I was using it like to run for about half an hour, a couple of times a week or whatever. And then I started reading about treadmill desks and all that kind of thing. So I bought a laptop tray off Amazon in the States, because they don't sell them here. And you basically attach it to the treadmill, then you attach your laptop to the tray, and then you just set off walking. And I can do it when I do a first draft. Actually, I'm due to start the young adult book next week, so I might start it up again. And I'm doing a first draft. You get into a kind of weird rhythm where you're walking, and because you're walking, you know how when you're writing you have lots of sort of lulls where you're kind of, I don't know what comes next, or I can't find the right word. There's always something about walking on the treadmill where the words come easier, possibly because you're doing something else at the same time. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I can't edit. And also the bonus of writing on the treadmill is it's really hard to surf the internet at the same time. It's a mouse. So you can't surf the internet and walk, but you can type, because I'm a touch typist. I did a secretarial admin course in my gap year before university, which was my mum's idea, and the only good thing that came out of that was the touch typing. But so I can touch type and walk at the same time. So
wow.
I think if anyone's met me and Steve in person, they'll know that we don't tend to do a lot of physical activity.
Not anymore. No. I don't think I could do that. I would be sick, I think, doing that.
Really?
The motion thing would. I suppose it would be different if you're reading and walking and something. The motion thing, because I can't read in a car. I can read in a train, but I can't read in a car.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. You can do that.
Yeah, I don't do it that often. As you've both met me, you'll know I'm hardly sylph-like. So I just do it occasionally. When you're just sitting at your desk all the time and you just start to get, or I do anyway, that kind of leg twitch thing just from sitting for ages. Yeah. It's one way of just keeping going, I guess, to do that every now and again.
That's fantastic.
That's brilliant. I like that. Right, I think we should let you go now and go and write all the multitude of books that you're going to have to write in the next year, according to this thing.
I know.
It's a lot of books, a lot of work. I mean, have you kind of planned out how you're going to do it?
Yeah, I've not got much time at all, actually. The next psych thriller is out in April. That's The Escape. I've got the line edits at the moment. I've got to finish those by Friday. And then first thing Monday, I've got to start writing the YA thriller, because it was sold on a partial. So, synopsis and 3 chapters. So I've basically got 68,000 words to write between now and end of January.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah. So less than 3 months. And then while I've got 2 weeks while my editor for the YA looks it over, in which time I need to plot the next adult book. And then ideally I need to start writing the next adult book in March, and then hand that in August. So yeah, it's going to be tight over the next couple of years. It's going to just be back-to-back books. But the book that I'm writing next for Avon, I hardly have to do any research for. The Escape, I did 3 months worth of research, which is the most research I've done for any book. But I was like, right, next book doesn't need research, which is a good thing now that I've got this YA deal as well that I've got to fit in.
Wow. And can you give us any sort of a hint about that book or the research that you did?
For the Escape.
Yeah.
It's basically it's about a woman who believes that her child is in danger, and she goes on the run. And in order to research it, I had to speak to somebody in family law, social services, an ex-policeman, a GP, and I went to Ireland because half the book's set in Clogherhead. I don't know if I said that properly.
Clogherhead.
Clogherhead.
Yeah, there's a sort of a cluck. You have to get. It's almost like you've sort of swallowed. You've swallowed a small vowel. Clogherhead.
Clogherhead. Yeah. So I went up for a week. I don't drive, so I took my friend Joe. We flew over to Dublin. Originally, I was going to get the ferry, but the weather was so bad I couldn't get the ferry. And then we drove up the East Coast, basically looking for locations for the book. And then I met with a couple of bloggers, Irish bloggers, to ask them questions as well about Ireland in the 1980s and, sort of customs and, days out with your dad or your mum, or what a house would an Irish house in the 1980s would have inside, and all of this kind of stuff.
You would have had 2 TV channels. That's it.
Yes,
that's the main thing. RT1 and RT2, and one of them channels didn't come on till like 4 o'clock.
Wow.
It was just off. It was like the dark ages.
That's when my dad was in the army and we were in Germany. We wouldn't get telly. We had one channel and it wouldn't come on until 12. We were deprived.
And people wonder why Irish people drink.
Yes.
Well, Callie, masses of good luck with the new deal, and we're really appreciative of you coming on and speaking to us about it, and also 90 Day Fiance sounds amazing. I'll be watching that.
Cheers, Luca. Cheers.
Thanks very much.
Awesome, Callie. Thanks. Bye.
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 Well, that just about wraps it up for this week. We thank Callie Taylor for joining us, and also Tracy, who I don't know if you're going to hear this podcast before it goes out, but I do implore you to listen to what your wife has been reading recently.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you were reading Wind in the Willows, no?
Well, it's kind of like Wind in the Willows. I mean, Wind is involved in a kind of way.
Right, okay.
I just, if you're wondering why she keeps sending you to the shop for oysters, you'll soon find out.
All right, cool.
So just before we go, we're going to talk about what we've been reading recently. I'm going to talk about I Know Who Did It by Steve Mosby. This is it's kind of a sequel to an earlier one of his works, The 50/50 Killer, which is one of the first books that I reviewed when I was a book reviewer, back in 2011 or 2012. I was astounded by the 50/50 Killer, and I found the 50/50 Killer in a charity shop. I think it was. Or it might have been a different story I've told over the years. I'm not too sure now. My memory isn't what it used to be. But it was one of those books that kind of like instantly connected with me, the 50/50 Killer. And it was after reading that I got in contact with Steve on Facebook, I think it was, and I remember ringing my wife Emma in work and saying, Steve Mosby's replied to my message. Now, obviously, we know the guy now, and it's a bit different, but like I've been a fan of his for a very, very long time, and a fan before a friend. I love every single one of his novels, and I Know Who Did It kind of keeps that gold standard going. It's a pseudo sequel to the 50/50 Killer, in that it does contain a character from those novels, but it starts with a woman who is discovered on the street, covered in terrible scars, claiming to be a woman called Charlie Matheson, who died 2 years ago in a car accident. Detective Mark Nelson is called in to investigate this, and then there's a supplementary plot line which contains Detective David Groves. David Groves is a detective whose son was murdered a number of years ago, and every year he receives a birthday card for his son. It's obviously affected his entire life, though, this event, and he's still working through it. One year, though, the card comes with a message that says, I know who did it. Now, they never found the murderer of his son. So you've got these two parallel plot lines going, and it's all about character, though, for me, with Steve's book, as usual. I mean, the two characters are incredibly well drawn. I mean, there's something for everyone who likes a bit of darkness in their crime fiction in these type of books. I think I've been a massive fan for a number of years, and this is just an incredible novel. That, I mean, it's his use of language for me is just second to none. You know, he's one of the best writers, just pure writers we have in the crime fiction genre.
He absolutely is.
Yeah, I mean, you've read a couple of his recently as well.
I have, yeah, and I know Who Did It was one of my favourite reads. I read it, came out I think last year, but it's out in paperback I think this year.
Yeah,
and it just blew me away. I mean, you're just talking about those two amazing hooks, like the woman who's found in the street, who's a woman who's actually died 2 years ago. That's an incredible hook. That would be enough of a hook for a brilliant sort of psychological thriller. But then there's another hook, which is the dual narrative of it, another fantastic one about the father and bereaved father who gets a birthday card on his son's birthday. And then there's that one with a message, I know who did it. That's an incredible hook. And to find both of those combined in one novel is incredible. I thought it was an amazing book and it blew me away. So if you haven't read it, folks, go and get that because it's amazing.
Definitely. I mean, I've got a lot to thank Steve for. I mean, he's part of the reason why I write the fiction I write today. Because when I started writing short stories at first, and I stumbled upon a character that I based on my granddad, and my granddad's nickname was Shooter. And I always thought, oh Christ, my granddad must be really connected, in Speak in Liverpool. And
you mean he's a gangster?
Yes, I thought he was a gangster. You've got a name like Shooter. I mean, you think your granddad's a gangster, and I always grew up thinking, if I've got any problems, I'll just go to Shooter and he'll sort it out. All these guys in the pub used to, I like Shooter, and I'm thinking, geez, he must have a gun. And he used to root in me nan and granddad's house for the hidden gun that he must have. It wasn't until later on that I found out that his nickname wasn't anything to do with guns. It was a truncated version of an older nickname that he had back in the 70s, which was Pea Shooter. And that's because he had 3 kids in 3 years. So the lads in the pub called him Pea Shooter. Which is just like, can you imagine as a kid, it's like every kind of, wall that you buzz up like around, how amazing your granddad is, to find out that it's nothing to do with, gangster stuff. So I was writing this horrible gangstery kind of fiction of like, set on the mean streets of Speak in Liverpool, and the planes going overhead and stuff. But it was terrible, and I couldn't do it justice whatsoever, that genre. And I was reading The 50/50 Killer for like the 3rd or 4th time at that point in about 2011, 2012. That made me realise this is the kind of fiction that I want to be writing. This is a bit more of what I feel I can bring to it. I mean, there was other parts to it as well, studying psychology and things like that. But it was reading that book where it was like, you know what? This is what I want to write. This is the kind of story that I want to tell. Not about Shooter. Because that's who it was. The character in the book in this gangstery fiction was called Shooter. And, it had one punchline, basically, which was that, they didn't call him Shooter because he had a gun or he was a gangster. It was because he had 3 kids in 3 years. That was I was trying to stretch that joke out for 90,000 words.
Oh, that's a long joke.
It was a long setup, but so I have a lot to thank Steve for. I mean, he's one of the best crime writers we have in the UK at the moment. So I implore everyone to go out and buy his books. I Know Who Did It is a great starting point, but you can go back and read The 50/50 Killer if you want to know what happened to a couple of the characters before this book.
Like I read I Know Who Did It before I read The 50/50 Killer, and it didn't. So you can read I Know Who Did It without reading The 50/50 Killer easily. Yeah.
So what have you been partaking in this week?
Well, I'm not going to talk about a book this week. I'm going to talk about a podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it our podcast? Because I want to make sure that, we're not...
No, it is not our podcast. It's the main star of the podcast is a friend of ours, Mr. Mark Billingham.
Oh.
Friend to many. One of our most talented and best-selling crime writers in the UK, and a lovely man indeed. But he's launched this brand new podcast called A Stab in the Dark.
Yes.
and it's run by it's UKTV, and there's at the time we're recording this, there's 2 episodes out, and the first episode, Mark is chatting to another legend, Val McDermott, who is brilliant. I love listening to interviews with Val McDermott because she's so funny and she's so incredibly intelligent. And a brilliant writer, so we were big fans of Val. And she's brilliant on this podcast. She's on with Kate Harwood, who's a former head of BBC Drama. So they're talking about female crime-driven fiction and female crime-driven TV. So there's Scott and Bailey there to discuss, and Silent Witness and Happy Valley, and it's a fascinating conversation. And Mark keeps everything moving very well, and it's very funny in places as well. And I think they have Sarah Hillary on in that episode. She's great. And then in episode 2, they have Mark interviews David Morrissey, a very famous Thorne, who played Mark's series character Thorne for TV. He played it very well. I thought he was a brilliant Thorne.
Do you know where David Morrissey is from?
No.
He's from Liverpool.
Is he?
Yeah. So I always have this standing joke with Mark that he stole my Murphy.
He stole your Murphy? I think we had a discussion. There's another actor you think could play Murphy as well.
Peter Serafinowicz.
Peter Serafinowicz would be a fantastic Murphy.
He's incredible. I mean, and he's from Liverpool, obviously. But he's a fantastic actor. Totally underrated as an actor, though. You know, he's known for playing, like, you know, a lot. Not. I wouldn't say bit roles, but he kind of pops up here and there, and he plays just like madcap characters. It's like
sort of like a character actor.
Yeah, but there was a series he did. Now I can't remember what it was called for the life of me at the moment. But he played like a detective in that, and he was just so intense and he took over the screen. It was incredible to watch. I was blown away by that performance, and I thought, you know what, this guy is my guy. So if ever anything happened, that'll be the guy that I would want for the Murphy role. Mark can keep David Morrissey.
Well, do you know how Mark got David Morrissey?
No.
Well, I have heard him tell the story. He sort of said whenever he was interviewed, and you get that question, who would you like to play your main character? Mark apparently always said David Morrissey. And I think David Morrissey came by the books and read them, and then Googled Mark Billingham. Everyone reads Mark's books, but he Googled Mark's name and found an interview where Mark said, "Yeah, I'd like David Morrissey to play Thor." I thought, that's just awesome. That's fantastic. So you keep talking about Peter Serafinowicz, and eventually it'll get to him.
Yeah.
We should tell when we launch this episode, we'll tweet him. And tell him we've cast him as Murphy.
that will be in touch over monetary and stuff.
We'll be in touch. We can pay you in grapes. But this podcast is fantastic. So episode 2 is David Morrissey on, and it's a brilliant conversation. I won't spoil anything, but David Morrissey tells a story about being on the set of Captain Corelli's Mandolin and his family visiting him. And that's all I'm going to say. That podcast is worth listening to for that story alone. It's brilliant. And he's also got, I think Paul Hirons, maybe I'm pronouncing that right, is the producer, and he has a chat with Lee Child. I think in this episode as well. I'm nearly sure it's in this episode he talks to Lee, and it's great. So it's brilliant. So folks, we want you to subscribe to our podcast and download it and listen to it and get in touch with us, but go and check out A Stab in the Dark, because it's great, and they're friends of ours, so any friend of ours is a friend of yours, folks.
And on that schmaltzy note,
yes.
So that'll do it for this week. Thanks to Callie and to Tracy for joining us. Steve's going to do the honours now and giving out the information for Twitter and Facebook and how to get in touch with us.
Yes, please do get in touch with us. Send us any question you want. We will answer anything. So for money, of course. If it's a really tough question, we may want to get paid, but get in touch with us on Twitter. We're at 2 Crime Writers. Email is 2crimewritersandamicrophone@gmail.com, and Facebook 2 Crime Writers and a Microphone. When you listen to this podcast, go and review it. I know where you live. If you don't review it, I'll come round your house and my accent gets thicker. Do you see that? Do you hear that? So, review this episode, please. Review all the episodes, subscribe, and keep us going. And thanks for listening, folks.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Oh, but next week?
Oh,
next
yeah?
week?
Oh, should we tell him who's coming next week?
Tell him who's coming next week.
Who's coming next week? No, I know, I'm joking. Next week we have the amazing Scottish crime writer Craig Robertson, who is possibly still grumbling over the 7-1 defeat that his Scottish crime writers team suffered at the hands of the English crime writers team this year. So it may just dissolve into a complete argument between the two of us because we are the opposing goalkeepers on those teams. But I'm sure we'll also try and cram in some talk about crime fiction and possibly even his time as I think it was a black pudding championship. He used to judge them.
Well, he's done all sorts of judging. He judged a porridge competition with Lynn Anderson there recently.
Oh, we're going to have to talk about that.
So I had to talk about porridge and black pudding and maybe a bit of crime fiction if we have to.
Excellent. That'll be next week. We'll see you then. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, folks. Bye.